Srimadbhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Balarama. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimadbhagavatam, Canto 3, Status Quo, Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila, and Text 20. Hitvatat ipsitatamam Apyakandalayoshhitam Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura Hitvatat ipsitatamam Apyakandalayoshhitam Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura. Please chant.
Hidvata Vichitakana
Abhyakandalayoshhitam
Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura
Hitvataripisitatamam
Hidvata Vichitakana
Abhyakandalayoshhitam Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura
Hitvataripisitatamam Apyakandalayoshhitam Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura
Itvataripsitatamam Abhyakandalayoshhitam Kinchit Chakara Vadanam Putra Vishleshanatura.
Word by word. Hitva, having given up. Tat, that household. Ipsitatamam, most desirable. Api, even. Akandalayoshhitam, by the wives of Lord Indra. Kinchit Chakara Vadanam. She wore a sorry look on her face. Putra Vishleshana, by separation from her son. Atura, afflicted. Translation. Although her position was unique from all points of view, saintly Devahuti, in spite of all her possessions, which were envied even by the ladies of the heavenly planets, gave up all such comforts. She was only sorry that her great son was separated from her. Purport. Devahuti was not at all sorry at giving up her material comforts, but she was very much aggrieved at the separation of her son. It may be questioned here that if Devahuti was not at all sorry to give up the material comforts of life, then why was she sorry about losing her son? Why was she so attached to her son? The answer is explained in the next verse. He was not an ordinary son. Her son was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can give up material attachment, therefore, only when one has attachment for the Supreme Person. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Param drishva navartate. Only when one actually has some taste for spiritual existence can he be reluctant to follow the materialistic way of life. You can get Bhagavad Gita, please. Om Jnana Divanandasya Gnanana Shalakaya Chakshurumritamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaskar Shalom Pannamam Yakrivatam Vande Shri Gurave Namaha. Pancha Kapil Vishar Kripasandadeva Chapatitanam Bhagavate Vaishnavi Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasava Bhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya Vinivartante. Vishya Vinivartante Nirdasadena Rasavajra Kasopyasya Param Dushman Vajra. It's 259. So, in the verse is Prabhu quotes in the purport here of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then body's soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engaging by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. I'll just read the purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. One who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pel things. So yeah, Devahuti, she was given so much opulence by Krishna, not by Krishna, by Kardama Muni, and ultimately by Krishna. But Kardama Muni, Devahuti's husband, was a great mystic yogi, and by his mystic power and by his strength gained meditation, he was actually able to create a wonderful, flying airplane. It's like a city, actually. It was very opulent. It's described earlier in Bhagavatam. So he didn't have to go to work. He didn't have to he didn't have to rob a bank. He didn't have to go to the casino and he hit the jackpot to get this big flying city. He just got it, by his power. So I'm sure a lot of people like that. Devotees say, I'll use it for Krishna, my mystic power. I'll get we'll get a few temples, right? SanDiego, all these things. We might use it for ourselves a little bit too. So that's what he did, and he lived out his household life, Prabhu Muni, with Devahuti, and they had a family life, children, and enjoyed family life, and also in a responsible, dutiful way, he served in that ashram. And then later, sometimes what devotees do is they leave. So he left his wife, Devahuti. And who did he leave Devahuti under the guidance of Kapila? So then Kapila gave all of these wonderful instructions to Devahuti. And then what happened next is that Kapila, when he left her son. So you can imagine what pain, because this is what it's describing, that she's actually feeling pain. She has a sorry look on her face. She's feeling pain because Kapila left, her beloved son. And it wasn't an ordinary son, it was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can imagine how much attraction, right? Because Krishna is all attractive. If that person was to leave. So that's what happened, he left home. So she was feeling sorry. And in the next purport, Prabhupada explains that when a calf dies, or a calf is lost to its mother, the cow, baby, then what happens? The cow is bereft of the calf, cries day and night. And then he gives similarly, Devahuti was also like that. She was going to her friends or her family and saying, where's my son? Please bring my son back, I'm going to die here. She's felt this separation. Which it's hard for people who don't have similar experiences to relate to, actually. If any of us in the room had a son or a daughter who did leave or might as well have passed away, because Kapila just left, he's not coming back, there's no, Kapila Muni's not going to text her, they would, hello mother, and how are you? He's not going to send her airmail, He's not going to send her a Christmas card, right? FedEx. He's gone. That's it. So there was no connection whatsoever after that. So, in other words, he might as well have left the world, It was just as good. So, maybe some of us have experience with that, family or friends, passing away, this and that, but especially for a mother who has a son or a daughter, that's like the highest, you could say, pain. Because the mother has a tendency to love usually to love the children unconditionally in a very intense way. So she was experiencing this. And she wasn't so much bothered by the lacking of material comforts, because in her early days, while she was with Karma Muni, he was living like that, in a very simple, austere way in the forest. And she was also living like that. So then later, when they both left, she resumed that lifestyle. So she wasn't really bothered by that. But she was bothered by losing her son. So, And you could say that all of our emotions that we have as human beings, they're all, you could say that there's the material side of them, but there's also a reflection, and then there's also the pure emotions. So, for example, pain, feeling separation. So that could be caused by material attachment. You know, like somebody, I'm feeling so much pain because whatever, I'm feeling so much pain because I lost my money or something. It's a material attachment. I'm feeling so much pain because whatever, so many things. My dog died. And someone say, oh no, that's maybe spiritual, but it's a material attachment. But there's the pure emotion that just as we feel pain in this world due to material attachment, similarly you feel a bit of a pain or something resembling that on the spiritual side, the spiritual emotions. It could create that. So that's what's going on with Devahuti. It's not a material. Her son's not material. He's a supreme person of Godhead. He's not an ordinary materialistic person or mundane person. He's a supreme person of Godhead, and she's feeling pain due to separation, and it's a spiritual attachment. So, and as Prabhupada mentions here, the Param Drishtvara Navartate, that spiritual existence, we have to have some attraction for spiritual existence. And at that point, we can become reluctant to follow a materialistic way of life. So we have to have some distaste, lack of attraction for a materialistic way of life. And we have to be, you could say, tired of it, sick of it, not impressed, whatever. It's nothing to be excited about. But this comes by having a taste in Krishna consciousness. And having a taste in Krishna consciousness, it really requires that it's like the false egos there, which is, you know, the sense of self that we have, which is false. You know, I am this body, whatever, I am the supreme, I am the enjoyer, whatever it is, all these, I am the controller, I'm the proprietor of so many things. So whatever the false conception is, the false ego is facilitating those strange ideas. So really we have to try to curb the false ego, or break down the false ego, or kill the false ego. And that could be a little difficult because, you know, it's like the false ego is like our buddy, you know. We kind of like the false ego sometimes. So, but if we try to curb the false ego, and specifically by serving Vaishnavas, then we could have a taste. We could actually have attraction for Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we don't really get it. We won't get it. Actually, we won't get it at all. We won't even get it theoretically, what to speak of. We won't understand Krishna consciousness theoretically, and we definitely won't understand Krishna consciousness in a realized way if we don't break down the false ego and serving the Vaishnavas. And it says that in the Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text 16. It says, Shushu Shoshadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruji Syam Mahatsevya Vipra Punya Tirtana Shevana. So it says that for one who serves the great souls who are free from vice, the devotees, one who serves the devotees, great service is done, and one gains a taste, one gains an attraction for hearing the messages of Vasudeva, the messages of Krishna. So in other words, one develops their love for Krishna, one develops their attraction to Krishna. Because what does love for Krishna means? It means attraction. It means uncontrollable pulling towards Krishna. That's what it means. When you love somebody, you can't help but think of that person, you can't help but to want to associate with that person, hear about that person. If you don't love him, you don't want to hear about him or her. you don't want anything to do with it, right? It's the last thing you want to hear about that person. Like some devotees, they don't like Mr. Trump, and they don't want to hear about him. Or sometimes they want to hear about him, but it's because they hate him, right? But it's not any love. Where some people, they like, they love Trump, and they want, oh yeah, Trump, let's hear about it. So it's that attraction. So the attraction develops by serving the devotees. That's what the whole Shastras say. Associate devotees, serve devotees, serve devotees, serve devotees. There's no way of getting around it. And then we could develop that higher taste. We will develop that higher taste. We'll be gradually, slowly but surely, reluctant to follow materialistic way of life. So does anyone have any questions or comments so far? Yes.
I was just thinking about Prabhupada's example of the cow and the calf.
Mm-hmm.
So one time Ryan and I went to the farm a while back. And I don't know what happened, but somehow or another the calf, little baby bull got free from the pen. And he wasn't even that far, but his mother was just like yelping, Do you remember that, Ryan?
Yeah, she did. She did that a lot.
Yeah, and he
What
wasn't.
did it sound like?
I don't know. It was like you could tell she was distressed. You could tell she was not happy that he was far away. And then once we brought him back in, she was just calm.
Mm.
But you mentioned that. You mentioned that we could have material attachments. Like, for example, if we lose our dog or something like that. But you also mentioned how, that we have love for particular people. And so, can you maybe elaborate on the idea that we could be materially attached, but yet we have this love, for people, just like a cow might have love for the calf. And there's obviously something spiritual there, right? That we're also attached to. So we could maybe
well, it's like when people have relationships with other people or whatever, they have a dog or whatever. Then if that relationship is separate, or in other words, or let's just say that Krishna is completely absent from the whole picture, then we could say that those relationships are just mundane relationships, materialistic relationships, which are based on material attachment. Oh, I love my dog because he's so cute, and she's so cute, and whatever. And it just becomes like a misdirected love towards something other than Krishna, which is ultimately just based on envy of Krishna. Oh, I don't want God in the picture. I just want to be far gone. But I want to love something else, a dog or people or whatever, whoever. So, but if Krishna is there in the picture, then, and we're directing our love towards Krishna first and foremost, and then everybody else, then there's some chance of actually seeing people in the right way, the soul, the spirit soul, and the servant of Krishna, and you relate to him on that level. And it can be a spiritual relationship. Because Krishna is there. And of course there's different types of, you could say, religious people, or pious people, or spiritual people, and that God's like in the center, right? And then whatever, other relationships, and then Krishna's in the center. But then there's like, Krishna's like kind of in the background, like he's there, but it's just kind of in the background. So, and of course, whatever, that maybe sometimes Krishna's in the center, maybe he's in the background, but that's good that he's at least there, but we want to try to bring Krishna to the center, because, I mean, that's just our nature. The Bhagavatam and so many other books, are saying, are trying to convince us that that is our nature. We're eternal servant of Krishna. Like I read this quote the other day, it said, I went to sleep and I dreamt that life was all about joy. And then I woke up and I realized that life is all about service. And then after that, I realized that service is joy. So, whatever, when we're in our night dreams, and mind's going all over the universes, or wherever it goes, you may dream, oh, life's all about joy, or whatever. But then when you wake up and you realize, oh, it's all about service. I mean, husband serves wife, wife serves husband, friend serves friend. Means if they're good. Master serves dog, dog serves mat, whatever. It's just, it's all serving. Everybody's serving everybody. So you realize that it's all about service, and that service is a joy. And of course, in Krishna consciousness, we're serving people in Krishna consciousness. We're serving our family members, our friends in Krishna consciousness. We're serving humanity in Krishna consciousness, and that's actually joyful.
So would it be safe to say that the degree that we can see Krishna in someone's heart and their relationship to Krishna is, to that degree we can have a spiritual relationship with them?
Yeah. I mean, based on our seeing Krishna, our level of Krishna consciousness, we can have a pure relationship.
And we can actually have a healthy attachment.
Yes, that's true. But of course, I mean, Queen Kunti, she says in the earlier part of the Bhagavatam that she was praying for her attachment to her sons to be removed. Their sons were all devotees. So, of course, we can look back at the purport, see how Prabhupada explained it. But yeah, even amongst our relationships with each other as devotees, we have to be careful because of, we just have to be careful because our conditioning and this and that we try to maintain a pure relationship, and that the material side of the attachment doesn't override, Also just kind of selfishness, I love you because whatever, you make me happy, or
You make me pancakes.
You make me pancakes on Tuesday. I love you because whatever. Just gotta be careful. Yes?
It's about attachment. So, yesterday when I was taking Jay Tamaraj to the airport, he was telling me about his earlier days in ashram life, and he had a certain problem, and he said that he just ignored it. And so I asked him if he thinks ignoring our problems are plausible solutions to them, and he said, well, in certain circumstances with certain issues. But as far as attachment goes, do you think if we ignore our object of attachment, or if we ignore the urge to indulge in that attachment, do you think it will go away, or how do you solve the problem of attachment?
Well, Prabhu gives an example of a child. So sometimes you're first in the mind as a child. Because the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam says we're different from the mind, we're different from the body, we're separate entities. So we have a mind, we have a body, and the body's considered to be like a child sometimes. So children, if they're playing with a sharp tool from the tool shed, they seem to be having fun. But the adult knows, hey, this is dangerous. You could hurt yourself. You could hurt, it could be a problem. So the adult, the responsible adult, goes up to the child and takes the tool out of the hands, but then the child starts crying. Well, because for some reason the child's taking some pleasure in that. Of course, he hasn't hurt himself yet, but still he's just whatever with the tool. But the adult who knows how to manage children, they give the child like a whatever, like basketball or a football or some water or whatever. You just give him something to engage his mind. And in that way, the child's attention is diverted to something else positive, where he's not going to hurt himself. So some of their mind has the tendency to seek and become attached and to enjoy and all these different things, hankering. So what we could do is we could divert our minds to the Vedic literature, the srimadbhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, to Hare Krishna mantra, to kirtans, to so many different ways of serving Krishna and Vaishnavas. There's billions of things to do in Krishna consciousness if we think about it. So we divert our mind in that way. So, and then gradually our mind becomes more of like a friend, or more fixed in Krishna consciousness. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that when the mind goes, when the mind wanders, what do? You just let it wander, and wander, and wander. No, Krishna doesn't say that. He says when the mind wanders, you bring it back. Bring it back to what? Krishna, bring it back to service. So our minds do that, they wanders. Throughout the day our mind wanders, we got to bring it back. And sometimes, people may wander off the path of Krishna consciousness for 10 years, 15 years. That was a big mind drift, Or 20 years, or 50 years, or 100 years, or 500 years, and then they come back. That was a big drift. Whereas our minds, those of us who managed to somehow or other stay on the ISKCON boat, the boat, going back to Godhead, our minds wander off, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever, bring it back. So what happens is, over time, we keep on doing that, right? This is the idea, this is the hope, and it is actually truth, that over time we keep on doing that, and then the gaps of spaced out, unconscious or lack of Krishna consciousness becomes less and less and less and less and less. And then eventually the mind just fixed in Krishna completely. But we have to struggle with that. So that's the struggle. It's one of them. There's a few others too. Does anyone have any other questions or comments?
I was just going to say that sometimes we have attachment to taking a type of service, something that we enjoy doing, traveling, or you have some kind of talent, or there's something that you do that you like. So sometimes you have to kind of see what's necessary, do the needful. Prabhupada describes there's activities that we're attached to, but then there's things that come up that you have to do. Don't like to go in the kitchen, clean up, wash pots, or mop the floor, whatever. But you need to, if you have something that you want to dovetail, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. We saw that yesterday. artists, that are very talented. And people have certain things that they can do, but at the same time, we have to realize that these talents can be given and taken away. And the ultimate thing is to please Krishna, whatever it might be. So sometimes you have to put it aside for a while. And when I first came, they would always tell you, well, we know that you have this talent, but to first get fixed up. Anybody still do that sort of advice? How do they do that?
Well, maybe not exactly so explicit.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that, and I've seen it, people come and they really want to do the service and they,
Actually, now that I think about it, there's a sense like that, nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, for example, distribute books. Like,
Yeah.
we like to encourage devotees to distribute books if they can, in the beginning,
Right.
especially, for a few years, and then see where that takes them. They may
Well,
venture off into other departments.
Right. Were you here when Madhavendra Puri was here?
Yeah.
Okay. But I remember when he first came, he didn't want to do anything. He wanted to study his books. Remember that? I don't know if you were here at that time. He just, he was a scientist and he just had to study his books. All day he'd be upstairs, reading his scientific book. And then one day, somehow we went on Sankirtan. And it's like, a whole new world opened up. And it's like, totally into Sankirtan.
Yeah.
But that's it works. But he, sometimes you have to give some facility. But basically, like I say, you want to learn the philosophy and become a little detached. It's too strongly attached to that particular thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada had this secretary, Harikesh, the Maharaj. But so Prabhupada told this disciple, this disciple was really attached to Prabhupada's personal service. Like he always wanted to be with Prabhupada, and cooking, and managing travel, and things like that. Making sure Prabhupada gets his massage, recording Prabhupada's morning walk. We want to be right there. And then Prabhupada told him, okay, I want you to leave now. I want you to go preach. Hit the road. Right? And I believe he wanted to preach in Russia or somewhere, kind of in that area. And then he really didn't want to do it. He said, no, Prabhupada, I can't do it. I want to be with you. I want to be in your service. And then Prabhupada was forcing him out the door. He said, no, go, leave. He wanted to see him advance. Go preach. And still Harikesh said, no, Prabhupada, I want to stay. And then Prabhupada's disciple said, what if they don't have anything to eat? What if all they have to eat is meat? And Prabhupada said, I don't care. Just go. And Prabhupada said, of course, Prabhupada didn't, he said this, but he was just making the point, like, get out the door. And Prabhupada said, fine, eat meat, I don't care, just go, get out of here. And then this disciple said, well, what about my consciousness? And Prabhupada said, damn your consciousness, go. So, from this, we see that, the spiritual master, or the devotees, the spiritual masters, the devotees, they'll try to encourage us and guide us in certain ways which we may not be comfortable with at the time, or we may not feel that that's the best thing for us to do, etc. But it actually is. It actually helps us grow. Just like with this disciple. He actually made a lot of advancement like that. Pleasing Prabhupada in that way. Yes.
Here's the final straw in that story. Mm. He would type Prabhupada letters to take dictation. And he was an expert typist, but he made some little mistake.
Oh, yeah.
And Prabhupada said, oh, you're useless. Get out of here.
Oh,
so he was devastated. So no, Prabhupada rejected him.
Yeah. But under this devotee, like, I don't know, thousands or millions or this whatever ridiculous amount of books, like huge amount of Prabhupada's books were distributed in, I think, Switzerland, small country. His two disciples, they were like the biggest book distributors ever, practically. They would distribute like, I think one distributed like 900 books in one day, like one SanDiego day. Like, I don't even know how that's possible. You go out for 8 hours or whatever and distribute 900 books. It was just on the street too. They would carry stacks like this, and they just handle their stacks to people, and people buy them. So.
I think I did the math. I have this book called The Nectar of Book Distribution, and Harinamananda Prabhu was historically #1 for all time. And his biggest record was like something like that, what you had mentioned. Of like big Maha and big books. And they would have this program, stacks, and he would distribute stacks. And then he would have they would have servant book distributors to just, their service was to bring books to them, and then he would just distribute them. But I did the math, and like 900 books, that's pretty much like a little bit less than a pallet of books. A pallet is like 35. It's like a pallet is 50 cases, and so I think that was like 35, 40 cases of books, of boxes, in one day.
Yeah, this was just on the street. It was just like, it was really bizarre. It was like going downtown or something, and like, it's like, maybe you go to a concert, or you go to like a big university, or you go to like a big factory or something. This is on the street. It's like, that's good for them. He's still distributing books. Maybe near him. Maybe he's up in ISB. All right. Srimadbhagavatam ki jai. Srila ki jai.
Balarama ki jai.
So you're gonna hang around? Memorial Day, where you gotta go?
What's that?
Memorial Day, where you gotta go?
We're gonna have breakfast.
Oh, technically speaking, most people don't work. Technically speaking, most people don't work on this day.
There's a bunch of chairs in the lobby.
Sure. I don't imagine so.
Oh, you know. Oh, man. We got some fruit. Oh.
We're gonna start bringing pallets and mix up.
What's that? All right, well, it's a Dr. Jones, right? So you
You're gonna stay for fruit. For fruit, I'm fired up. Very nice.
Where did you take the? No.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. There were different sheets on that thing. In the same file as different sheets.
This one, that's called roll call.
Roll.
Let's accept this already.
Krishna
And of course, in the Vedic conception, the universe is created by a supreme being, by Krishna. But basically, the description in the Vedas is that the earth is considered to be at the center of a relatively small structure, and the various planets, sun and moon and so forth, are circling around the earth, and out at some distance there's a series. Please don't do anything more with the microphones, because it's going to make that noise again. So either it works or it doesn't, but let's just leave it. So, going out to a certain distance, there's a series of shells. Actually, it's described there are 7 shells covering the universe, according to the Vedic picture. And in the Vedic literature, it's described that there are many universes existing within the causal ocean, and each one is surrounded by a series of shells like this. And these are practically innumerable.
there are various descriptions given. For example, they're compared to bubbles of foam within the ocean. You can just imagine how many bubbles of foam there are in the ocean. Or they're compared to the mustard seeds in a barrel of mustard seeds, and so on. Well, in other parts of the world, this same conception existed. So, in the ancient Mediterranean area, where the Greek and Roman civilizations and so on existed, people also had practically the same conception of the universe. As far as I'm aware, the idea of many universes floating within a causal ocean was not described outside of India, although maybe people did have that idea, but it just hasn't come down to us so prominently. But the ancient Greeks, for example, also had the idea of a universe which was contained within a shell. The Earth was at the center, and the different planets were moving around the Earth. So that conception was there. Now, in the Vedic literature, there's one basic description of the universe, which in the books we have is presented mainly in the 5th canto. And that describes a number of unique features, such as a universal mountain, which we call Mount Sumeru, and so on. You also find that in very ancient times, people in many parts of the world had this idea of Mount Meru. For example, the Greeks had this idea. They called it Mount Olympus. And by the time we come to the Greek civilization, they had placed it in Greece, a sort of parochial viewpoint. But the Greeks were fond of Greece, so they wanted everything to be there. So their Mount Olympus, though, really corresponds to Mount Meru, because it's a mountain on top of which the gods are dwelling. Zeus and so on lived on top of Olympus. So likewise, on top of Mount Meru, there are the dwelling places of different demigods and so forth. Also, the Scandinavians had the same idea. I once saw a map of the universe according to the ancient Norse, the Vikings and so forth. And there was a central island with a ring-shaped ocean around it, and in the center of that island there was a vast mountain. And on top of that mountain there was what they called Asgard, which is the dwelling place of the gods, with Thor and so on and so forth. So this conception of the universe used to be found all over the world. You can trace it in many different cultures. So that's one conception which was existing in ancient times, but also in ancient times there's existing the conception of the Earth as a globe and the planets as moving around the Earth in different orbits. So that's also there in Vedic literature. There are books such as the Surya Siddhanta, which describe the Earth as a globe, and they describe how the different planets orbit around the Earth. And these texts give mathematical details for calculating where the planets are at any given time. This is of interest to astrologers, because they do their astrological calculations based on where the planets are within the zodiac. So these scriptures also provide rules for calculating when eclipses of the sun and moon take place. And you can do more sophisticated things. You can calculate when the sun and the moon will be at 90 degrees from one another, and different things like this. So the relationship between the 5th canto type description of the universe and these descriptions of the Earth as a globe with the planets going around is a whole subject of discussion, which I can also get into. But just to give a short historical summary of what happened. As I was saying, in the ancient world, the Greeks had the same basic idea. Then, after the Greeks came the Romans, who didn't really do much in the way of astronomical investigation. They were mainly interested in politics. And then, of course, the Roman Empire collapsed, and in the Middle Ages, nobody did very much because they all became Christians. And so they weren't actually very much interested in things such as astronomy. But then came the Renaissance, which is very famous, when in Italy and also other parts of Europe, people began to rediscover the writings of the ancient Greeks. Those had been lost in Europe during the Middle Ages, but the Arabs kept them intact, more or less. Not really intact, because